Proceed.
So I will say welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining the virtual yard. We have a weekly meeting of Caymanians overseas and those in Cayman to join us, to feel connected to Cayman, feel connected to home when we're far away. This has been particularly important during COVID, when a lot of us want to be home and can't. And it's been a really fantastic way to stay connected and feel close to home. So I want to thank all those that have been involved over the months of having special guests and events. And this month, as a finale to our poetry month, we have 3 fantastic poets joining us from the Cayman Islands. And I want to thank you so much. I'm going to pass to our Cayman Connection Regional Manager, Rita, who's going to host the event. And just on behalf of Cayman Connection, thank you so much to everybody. I'll be letting people in as they join. Nice to see you all. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you everybody for coming. I'm sure that a few more people will show up shortly, but we want to get started because we want to be able to have enough time to discuss the pieces that we're going to hear. So we have 3 poets of Lauren Williams, Nasaria Suckoo-Chollette, and Leonard Dilbert with us here. So we have 2 people in Cayman right now. Thank you for spending your mid-morning with us, maybe breakfast for some or closer to lunch. And Lauren, who's here in the UK. Thank you so much. Lauren, by the way, who will start us off, has been doing a bit of a takeover on our social media. And I'd like her to tell us a little bit about how that's been going. She's been representing Caymanians in poetry, or Caymanian poets, here at Cayman Connection for a little while now, but this month she decided to really do something special to share her love of poetry with us. So Lauren, you want to talk a little bit about how it's been this past month and maybe some of the themes that you worked with?
Hi everybody.
Hi.
The themes that I worked with was pain, growth, identity, and love. Going on live on Cayman Connect has been really, I would say, overwhelming in a good sense, where I get to share and read other pieces of work. It was really nice to go on live and just interact with people who just came on the page, or people who commented and watched the video after, and people who shared on their stories and stuff. So that was quite exciting and quite overwhelming. Not being so social media popular or into it, and going on live on K Connect, where a lot of Caymanians come and watch. So it's been good. I think it's been good to me. It's been good to other people, and glad to have done it.
Well, thank you. No, we really enjoyed it. And for somebody that's a little, you sound like, I'm actually surprised because you were so natural, you were so honest in your delivery of each of the pieces. And I'm curious why you chose those particular themes.
Well, it was me and Caitlin Westerborg. We were just sitting, and I had a few themes, and she helped me pick them. So I just want to give credit where credit is due. And I started with those where these, let me make it clear. We started with these themes because from pain, like, they all interconnect. So oftentimes realization or self-awareness comes from experience of pain. And from pain, you grow. And from growth, you realize who you are as an identity. And identity as a whole allows you to extend yourself more through love, if you get me. So that's why these themes were chosen and in the order that they were.
Fantastic. No, thank you. Thank you once again. If you all are curious about what we're talking about, you can visit our social media pages and you can see some of the work that Lauren has been doing over the past month. So I just wanted to put that out there. We've been celebrating Poetry Month since the beginning of the month, and we want to do this as an annual event. But Lauren, about you now, you're studying at the moment, correct?
Mm-hmm. 3rd year psychology.
Okay, and everything is going well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, everything. Deadlines are coming up. Yeah, okay. So it's good though. It's good. I enjoyed it all the way through.
Fantastic. And you also are writing consistently. Lauren actually has won a poetry slam in Cayman. It's in Cayman, correct?
Yes.
Yes, right? Okay, I'll make sure it wasn't here. So she has been dabbling in this for a while, and she became inspired a few years ago on a trip to Trinidad. So Lauren, we would love to hear the piece that you have to share with us. And then afterwards, please, by all means, everybody can ask questions or make comments. So Lauren, tell us what piece you've chosen for us this afternoon or this evening or this morning, depending on where you are.
So I chose My Chaos. I had this for the theme of growth and it allowed me to almost, strange enough, be so vulnerable on camera because it allowed it kind of just tapped into things that I kept privately, and I feel like I should just read it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and do that. Just make sure I can see it fully. My chaos. It means to finally say sorry to yourself. There's a time that exists I never knew, where words invert nicely. The question has an answer. My spine, nonlinearity, hazed eyes, my voice, unrecognized. I looked deep inside, bombshells laid, smoke, the flooding, all familiar. I see where war began and what was left. Chaos dripped like a loose faucet, filling a lover's barrel until it needed a crack. They needed to release all that they held because of me. The chaos ended in silence. Then, a stranger's words of wisdom became a love letter in the mail. The voice chakra finally took span within two sides of the skeleton, figuratively in the sky. A sound flew. I had to face her once more. Don't erase the eyes, let it be a lesson learned. Like a pen without confidence, but now this time, no more excuses to stop writing. My chaos ended with silence. I said sorry to myself, as even I, the former one, deserved forgiveness. It is what it is to know these growing pains. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. We can unmute everybody. It's okay. As a matter of fact, I would love you to unmute right now. That's part of when you perform. You really look forward to hearing,
Yeah.
that we've right. So here, right. So thank you, Lauren. That was a beautiful piece, and I think I would love you to read it again, of course, but we won't have that happen maybe right now, but perhaps it's a piece that you could share, maybe just the text of it with us, because that would be lovely to have. Beautiful piece. Anyone want to speak with Lauren about her particular piece? Things that, no.
But no, poetry is a difficult field in terms of immediate response, because you kind of need to sit with it. Huh? You need to sit with it and let the things that you heard either sink or swim, as the case may be. What will resonate or not, what you respond to or not. So no immediate comment.
I totally agree. I find that, and I was mentioning earlier on in the meeting about how much I enjoyed the Poetry Month, and Lauren, your recitals, your comments on the other poems, and I watched those videos 2 or 3 times for that very reason. And because I was like, wow, and then I would hear a bit, and it's amazing how the mind works, because I would hear a part of the poem and it would really touch me, and I'm like, wow. And then I'd want to hear it again, but within minutes I could have forgotten the actual words. So what was affecting me was the feeling. That's why, Leonard, I think it is really hard to come back straight away on a poem. And then I'd have to go back and listen to it again or read the words. So it's really, it's this whole month has re-inspired me in poetry. And I used to love poetry, and I used to
still
be
do.
involved, and I still do.
You still do.
But that's
See, what you're saying, Kate, is like in the vein of the understanding that the words are mysterious things, right? And we use words, and every word that you find in a poem, well, maybe not every word, but 75%, say, of what you find in a poem, in any poem, is going to be ordinary words, words that you use every day. And when you use them every day, they mean everyday things. You put them in a different context where they have a different structure around them, and they're called upon to do different work with other words that are around them, and all of a sudden you're hearing something different. And what you're hearing is going to be resonating with you more emotionally than rationally. And it is that emotional reaction that you have to take time to get to grips with, to figure out, like, where exactly am I responding from? What is it within me that is responding to that? What does that actually mean to me? So that's why for me, it just takes time to sort it out.
Lauren, there was a line that as Kate said, I loved it. I missed a part of it, but it was, and wondering if you could read that line again. It's something about voice chakra.
Yeah.
I think it's just a beautiful image.
A stranger's words of wisdom became a love letter in the mail. The voice chakra finally took span within two sides of the skeleton, figuratively in the sky. A sound flew.
Love it. I just love that whole section. That's where I felt that I connected with the piece, and also because I can see it's a very vulnerable thing to read your work like this. And I could, that was where I think that was the moment that you were the most sort of open, you know, I like that it was like a restful spot in the piece that allowed me to really actually experience what you were saying. So I really love that section.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Lauren, I actually think I'm going to change my mind. I'm allowed to do that, right? Am I allowed to do that ever?
No, sorry.
I'm never allowed to do that?
No.
I'm sorry to tell you, Leonard. But I would love if you would read the piece again. And we do have ample time and everything. And there are a few sections that stood out to me about the dripping and the bombshells. And there's some very kind of stark, harsh images. And then how you ended the piece was very unexpected for me. I didn't realize, well, I guess that's the point. I didn't realize you were going to go in that direction. It did throw me off a bit in a good way. And it made me try to reinterpret what I'd heard earlier, because I already had put my own interpretation into this has to be about this, right? And then it took us somewhere else. And so I would love if you would read it again. And now we're all friends and everything's good. So
I don't blame you. Yeah, sorry. I don't blame you with the whole confusion or like the twist, because sometimes it ends up like that. What got me the last line, you ever heard of Erykah Badu?
Yeah.
And her song,
of course,
I can't remember the title. I mean, why would I ask that question? Erykah Badu. I watched her when I was writing this. I was watching her NPR her concert, NPR mini studio concert, and one of the things that she said that really just touched me was, I hate these growing pains. It was about, I can't remember the song name, but it was just, she was in a relationship and she knew what it was damaging, and eventually she had to just chip out and be like, nah, I need to open my eyes to this. But anyway, yes. My chaos, let me just make sure I'm breathing properly.
These growing pains.
Yeah. It means to finally say sorry to yourself. There is a time that exists I never knew, where words invert nicely. The question has an answer. My spine, nonlinearity, hazed eyes, my voice, unrecognized. I looked deep inside, bombshells laid, smoke, the flooding, all familiar. I see where war began and what was left. Chaos dripped like a loose faucet, filling a lover's barrel until it needed a crack. They needed to release all that they held because of me. The chaos ended in silence. Then, a stranger's words of wisdom became a love letter in the mail. The voice chakra finally took span within the two sides of the skeleton. Figuratively, in the sky, a sound flew. I had to face her once more. Don't erase the eyes, let it be a lesson learned. Like a pen without confidence, but now this time, no more excuses to stop writing. My chaos ended with silence. I said sorry to myself, as even I, the former one, deserved forgiveness. It is what it is to know these growing pains.
Okay, no more rehearsing, guys. Remember, turn off your, you can take them. Okay, rehearsal done.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
You.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
Mm.
It's
think
sinking, right? Go ahead, Nasaria.
I was just saying, I think the song is either called Green Eyes or it's something about green eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Erykah Badu, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. That's it. That's one of my favorite in that that video NPR studio performance that she did was absolutely lovely.
I love it when work makes me sort of wonder about things and there's like a little mystery. Like I so want to know who the stranger was.
Yeah.
You understand? It's like you get connected to these little abstract little thoughts as you're hearing work, like who was that? And it makes it more intriguing. You didn't answer every question, which is good.
Yeah. And the she. I
Absolutely.
love the pen without confidence. That's
Mm.
really resonated with me. Pens can do so much when they're writing, but if without confidence. So really beautiful, Lauren. Thank you.
The forgiveness at the end too, after you've described things. I mean, I wrote the line down this time because I wanted to capture it. Chaos dripped like a loose faucet. And the fact, the imagery that, I just see it there and just see this kind of vessel with a crack, and it just is very like little by little just emptying. You don't even realize that it's emptying because you can't hear anything, but it's doing this job quite silently until you realize one day when you look back at it that its contents are no longer there. They've seeped out into something else or somewhere else. So that kind of took me a bit on a bit of a journey and wondering who the vessel was and where's chaos now. So thank you. Really, really lovely piece. So were you listening to Erykah Badu and then you wrote this, or were you writing and then the song came on?
I was listening. I heard it before and NPR. I've watched this video like probably 15 times. But it's just something when I listen to that is that feeling, and it puts me in this setting where it's not like background noise, but like, I don't know how to explain it. There's this type of aura.
It creates like an atmosphere, maybe.
Yeah, that type of atmosphere. Yeah, I would say I was kind of looking. There was drafts before this, and I was looking, and then in a sense, this video came to my head, and I was like, I'm gonna see what I can do with this. And this came from it. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah, you're working. It's like you're working with the other artists, even though they're not aware that you're working with them.
Yeah.
In a strange way. I said sorry to myself.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. Eh?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of how it works in the sense that you can be inspired, if you will, from everyday things, everyday conversation. But in a lot of cases, people make art responding to other artists, and or at least in part responding to other artists, whether you call it being inspired by them, or you're talking back to them, or you're questioning them, but you're responding to how they did what they did about what they did. And I think it's a almost necessary part of the whole enterprise.
And sometimes you don't even realize that you are, because
Yeah.
some things stick with you for a while until
Right.
you've forgotten the genesis of it, but then it shows up again later on. Yeah.
Absolutely. The dialogue, that whole dialogue is very interesting. Even when you're speaking just now, your language like changed in speaking about your influence.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you yourself take on another character in inviting this particular character into your creative space. You know, that dialogue is truly fascinating. And as the Nasaria was saying too, that it sometimes shows up, you might listen, for instance, to Erykah Badu now, and in 10 years, you're writing in response to her because of other stimulus or stimuli that bring her out. You know, it's an incredible process.
Yeah, part of the huge payback, I guess, for the artistic process, and responding to any kind of artistic calling, which, as we all know, who practice, is difficult. It is that you benefit from an experience that I suppose in many ways only other artists have, or people who appreciate art have, perhaps you could say to a lesser degree. You benefit from a life of the imagination that enriches your experience on an everyday basis to such an extent that, at least speaking for myself, I wouldn't want to do anything else. I feel like I can't do anything else, because what that allows me to do in my life is irreplaceable.
Well said. Okay, everybody, it's time to go home now.
Drop mic.
Mic drop. No, absolutely true. I mean, thank you, Leonard, for that. And I think that that's really important, because I guess it leads me, or it's a perfect segue to say, Lauren, why poetry? Why for you?
Oh, you're really asking? Okay.
I really asking.
Rhetorical.
A real question.
A real question, no.
I do it because it allows me to be vulnerable, and in a sense, I put my whole truth into that poem, but you don't know what it is. Like, in a sense, you're like, yeah, I like that imagery. I like those some lines stick with me because you can relate to it and you put it into your own experiences. But you'll never really know unless I tell you, most times, what I mean. And it's a sort of release to be like, not to search for attention or to tell my story to the world, but in a sense to kind of validate, but also reassure me that that this is okay. This is honesty, and it's okay to be vulnerable and honest. Even if no one gets it, you get it, and you've put yourself out there to, and you put yourself out there as an art for people to feel and appreciate. And yeah, just it's back to the release part. It really helps, like a therapeutic kind of putting feelings to words and kind of putting on paper, even if I struggle to say it out loud, kind of deal.
Absolutely. It's the whole process is cathartic for you. And are you someone that also writes pieces that are quite explicit, or do you find that most of your pieces kind of, have other meanings other than what maybe we're experiencing? I mean, I probably shouldn't ask that, but I'm just curious because it sounds like you want to express something and you want to share something, but you want to hold something for yourself as well.
Mhm.
You know, obviously people have different approaches. Some people are quite explicit in sharing what it is they're feeling. And I mean, with poetry, well, anyways, are there other pieces that you have that would you say are a bit more explicit, that reveal a bit more about who you are?
That's a good question. I've never thought about that.
So I guess that's a no.
I mean, I never
That's
really want
that's a
to.
yes, but I'm not telling you.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. No.
I would say
you're
there's
mysterious.
I would say there's pieces. I can't pinpoint one for you, but there was this poem I wrote, Man of Many Colors. And it was like basically one teacher that asked about religion and what we believed. It was, I mean, as explicit as it gets. I said exactly what he was saying. I mean, if that's what you mean. Also the poem I had for love, the theme of love, that was quite explicit. That was clear on how I felt, I suppose. I just feel like it is, but it isn't, you know?
These growing pains.
Yeah.
Won't forget it. Lauren, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. If we can have those mics off just for a second so we can thank Lauren. And I know she has to leave a bit early, so I'm
So much.
going to say thank you for this month and thank you for your time now. And we look forward to more work from you. Please do keep us abreast of what's happening with your writings and when your book will be published.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, so next up we have Nasaria Suckoo-Chollette, and I am so happy that she's here for many, many reasons, not just her poetry. It's nice to see her. She also, I have a relationship actually with each person that's on here. Lauren and I spent a lot of time together at summer arts camp at the Cultural Foundation. many years, many moons of that. Nasaria actually was my drama teacher in Young at Arts and a mentor to me also. And I'm very pleased to have her here. And Leonard will talk about when we get to him. But Nasaria also has just recently, it was this week now, right? The biennial at the National Gallery.
Yes, yeah.
So you have some work on display at the National Gallery. And she is a woman that, you know, she paints and
stick a pin.
And so I know you are too. I was going to come to you.
No. Nasaria,
Okay.
Nasaria won the initial BNR.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you, Leonard, because it was like the biggest kept. It was like the biggest kept secret in Cayman when it happened.
Yes. Can we do another round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. You didn't know that Leonard was the co-host, but he is.
It was very exciting for me because here we have this first time that we're doing a biennial, and I can't say it the way Leonard says it. Oops, sorry. And we have, you know, a woman of color who was one. We broke a couple of things there. And it was really also reassuring for me. Sometimes you work and you work and you work, and as much as my work is for myself, it is good to see that it is being received well as well.
Absolutely. Congratulations once again.
Thank you. And I'm competing again to win against my husband. So we're not, I'm not resting on any laurels.
I am not, we're not getting into that on this show. That's another show. So, well, thank you for being here. Today, of course, we're going to hear some poetry. And we'd love to hear the piece that you are bringing for us to listen to. And of course, we can all, everybody, please, by all means, if you have any comments at all, don't be shy. Even if you have to keep your cameras off, they would love to hear from you as well, right? Pretend we're in a theater or in a studio space. And we're interacting with our artists today. Please don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. So Nasaria, without further ado, if you would be so kind as to share one of your pieces with us.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to see everybody here. I see King Navasa. I wanted to say hello, and Jawara, who I know slightly, and I know King Navasa quite well. So just wanted to say that. And then also that reading my poetry in front of somebody who used to teach me poetry is kind of nerve-wracking, Leonard. So send me notes privately. I'd appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to read Blackbird Wings, and I do tend to pack my work is packed with a lot of imagery, which just happens to come naturally. And so I'm trying to do it in such a way that you can like get the image before I move on to the next. All right, Blackbird Wings. Summer wouldn't leave that year. The red tide came and killed all of them sea eggs. Fish just flipping bout, floundering for air. Them boys had lit that white lime pit and burned them coral rocks to daub walls for Sadie's marriage house. And the moon had stayed full for 3 months straight, like Mella's daughter Belly when she had them twins that took one single breath and then flew away. That same long summer come the red northeast winds that dumped Saharan dust all over and brought Tommy that bad sickness, and he flew back home same way. And little me, green like fresh young grass after that soaking rain, that tap, tap, tap on my zinc roof, declared right in front of Mrs. Allen E. Banks, that same one who looked like she bathed with blue soap and draped her skin in the sun to bleach, declared right in front of her that I sure wasn't planning to clean her house for the rest of my life. That was the summer when my Anan told me a story she got from them African people before us, our people she called them, what had passed down their story over teeth and gum, how our people had known how to fly. Anan voice always like cool sheets after a long day of backing and bending. Backing water from the well to scrub floors, bending down low to wash them heavy chenille bedspreads for little bread put in pay. Anan, my shade tree. Anan say, when we put our minds to it, we are people who can fly. Anan say, anytime let life get up round my neck and choke, crawl up in my belly and rot, buzz in my head and set my brain on fire, all I need to do is gather the spirits from our spirit tree and fly right away. So that smarmy summer when all of them red-shaped babies appeared out of the morning mist and climbed the walls of the house, that smelting summer when I started to cut breasts and Boyd teased me about I got 2 cocoa plums growing on my chest. That same sweltering summer when that woman tell me, get my nasty black foot out of her fresh swept sand. That's the same summer I learned how to spread my blackbird wings and fly.
Oh, wow.
I'm in tears.
Oh my God.
Don't do that.
No, you don't do that.
You know that I'm born in April. Don't cry. I will cry with you. It's a lot to unpack. I know.
Initial reactions. I see. I feel.
Kate, don't do it.
Cotton bubbles and all that.
Oh
I mean, I just see the whole childhood. I see everything. And I feel it's quite melancholic. I mean, it's bittersweet. It's like, oh, Father.
A lot of sadness there in the beginning, but to listen to it though as well, because I can imagine reading it, you're obviously just not the same, and hearing your voice and really feeling that child and the memories. But from a child's kind of perspective as well, and the twins flying. Oh God, wow. I'm not going to forget the spirit tree, and I'm going to remember that for when I, in simple terms, get stressed or feel the choke. That's really, really beautiful. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I feel like it hit harder and harder as it went on. Now I'm just like, wow.
Absolutely. When you start out with a sea egg, right? The first images is a sea egg.
Mhm.
From that moment, I was like an omen. I'll tell you true, in a weird way. It was like, oh no, where are we going
Something
with
is
this?
coming.
From time, it's like certain images conjure up certain feelings depending on your association, with it. And it was like one thing. I quickly put some things down, some things like, how you're capturing our cultural heritage within this, and which is really important. I mean, for me, if I write something, I love to pepper it with bits and pieces from our heritage or our past, things that I can to keep not only that particular memory alive, but hopefully then to pass it down so that someone will ask, well, what's that about? Explain this to me. It's to go further. It's capturing it in a more succinct way, maybe than writing a book, but putting enough imagery in there about Caymanian culture and heritage and, and beyond African heritage, so that I can encapsulate particular feelings. And then if I have my son read it, I can then go into further detail about what that means. When you said, scrubbing the floors, and like, as you said it, because the imagery is so vivid, I saw ocean turbot skin, like I saw someone with the skin of the fish, like it just took it in many different directions. And then I had to stop myself to ensure that I was hearing the next line. So with that, I would really love if you would do it one more time for us.
Okay, sure. I'll give you a little bit more context too this time, just to say that the people that are sometimes in this, I am speaking as if it is me, but it is drawing on a story from perhaps my mother's childhood. And then Anan obviously is an elder and drawing from her also. And that happens quite a lot in my work because there are certain things I didn't live that my mother lived that she shared with me. And in learning to understand our parents as we become adults. So you're not looking at your parent as perhaps maybe their faults or their shortages when you were a child. You're looking at them as a human being and what has caused them to be who they are, positive and negative. That's a lot of my writing helps me to work through some of those things with an understanding, looking at this person as a human being with damages and challenges and gifts, instead of looking at them from the hurt position of a child. I hope that helps a little bit. So I'll read it again.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, can I say something before you do? Just to plant something a little different in people's minds as they're listening to you. The whole sort of use of the Caymanian way of speaking, let's put it that way, for want of an acceptable term. The use of that in a sort of wholehearted way, where there's really no attempt in the context of the writing to necessarily explain to or translate for a listener who may not be familiar with that way of speaking. I think that has a very particular value, and it's not the way I work, but I appreciate it. I think it needs doing desperately, because if we don't invest in that, there's a very real danger of losing our way of hearing the way that we used to speak, and therefore not being able to repeat it again. In other words, losing that language form. There are many languages dying around the world, and let's try not to make ours one of them.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I remember us hearing from someone, might have been you, that we need a name for it, and we said Cayman talk or Cayman language or something, but I agree.
Absolutely.
All right, blackbird wings. Summer wouldn't leave that year. The red tide came and killed all of them sea eggs. Fish just flitting about, floundering for air. Them boys had lit that white line pit and burned them coral rocks to daub walls for Sadie's marriage house. And the moon had stayed full for 3 months straight. Like Mella's daughter Belly when she had them twins that took one single breath and then flew away. That same long summer came the red northeast winds that dumped Saharan dust all over and brought Tommy that bad sickness, and he flew back home same way. And little me, green like fresh young grass, after that soaking rain, that tap, tap, tap on my zinc roof, declared right in front of Mrs. Allen E. Banks, that same one who looked like she bathed with blue soap and draped her skin in the sun to bleach, declared right in front of her that I sure wasn't planning to clean her house for the rest of my life. That was the summer when my Anan told me a story she got from them African people before us. Our people, she called them, what had passed down this story over tea and gum, how our people knowed how to fly. Anan voice always like cooled sheets after a long day of backing and bending. Backing water from the well to scrub floors, bending down low to wash them heavy chenille bedspreads for little bread put in pay. Anan, my shade tree. Anan say when we put our mind to it, we are people who can fly. Anan say anytime life get up around my neck and choke, crawl up in my belly and rot, buzz in my head and set my brain on fire, all I need to do is gather the spirits from the spirit tree and fly right away. So that smarmy summer when all of them red shank babies appeared out of the morning mist and climbed the walls of the house. That melting summer when I started to cut breasts and boy teased me, but I got cocoa plums growing on my chest. That sweltering summer when that woman tell me get my nasty black feet out of her fresh swept sand. That's the same summer I learned how to spread my blackbird wings and fly. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Love it. I love it.
It's so rich. It's so rich on so many levels. And I have to, Leonard, you really became the co-host. I have to second what Leonard said about the necessity to capture our way of speaking, our way of relating to things, our way of describing events and the world around us, to frame things in a Caymanian context. And the language is so important there because it really gets to your soul. I mean, it, you know, you feel it in, I mean, I feel it in my stomach. It's so visceral just when you hear what you recognize or what you've recognized from birth, or even, you know, having lived in Cayman for a period of time. When you connect with that sound, it's one of the most comforting things. I mean, it comforting, and at the same time, it, you know, depending on the words that are used and the situation, it can really have a negative impact too, right? When we're speaking, it can really hit you hard in your gut. What I wanted to, now that I've heard it the second time, the use of color, you know, the colors, the red shank and the Sahara Desert. So you imagine this kind of orange and black bird and blue soap and bleach and green. When you describe her as, you know, green, fresh, young grass, she's like the only relief in the whole piece. The green, fresh, young grass. Everything else around it, you know, is kind of rust colored and some the never-ending summer, and you know, it just, and the black at the end. But I just see there are all these colors, you know, that come up, and then you just see her kind of in the center of it all. She's just such a relief at that point in the piece.
Elizabeth, can I, sorry.
Yes, no, go ahead. By all means.
There's a very sort of cinematic quality to the whole thing, in that there are these very sharp images, like you see a lot of color, and the description of the actual things that are mentioned are all quite evocative, but it's like you're seeing these very sharp images connected to one another. So in one way, it's very painterly in terms of the use of color and shapes and sizes and all these things, because you get a lot of referencing to shapes and sizes as well. The Sahara, that's obviously is an enormous thing. A red shank baby is like this size, right? And so on and so on. So there are a lot of references to that sort of scaling up and down as well. So to my mind, very, very compositionally strong in that sense, right? In that it folds these things one on top of another. So it's almost like you kind of open an accordion of images. Very interesting.
I go take this simple route. Sorry,
go ahead.
I go take the simple route and just celebrate how, in simple terms, your nan and the people who spoke in this poem just shook up the negativity and just spat out kind of how to reflect the pain, or how to not celebrate pain, but in a sense celebrate how they overcame it. I don't know what to
celebrating wisdom in a way.
Yeah. So in a sense, usually when you see the Black image, is often connected with pain or often connected with struggle. And in the sense, you see struggle, you see pain, you see discrimination, but it's, as I said, it's shaken up to the point where it's, you feel good that they can overcome it. You feel good that they can look at that, or look at being talked out a certain way, and know that they have the power within themselves to, you know, see past that. That is nothing that could affect them. Yeah.
I wanted to flip that image where you said that Black is always associated with something negative, but in this case, it is the release, and the history of the Black is the wealth of the knowledge. And we don't have to consider the flying way to only be death, but it can be interpreted as release, as overcoming. And that's why I kept it at I flew away, because you can fly away mentally from a lot of things. Leonard, it's funny that you had brought up the idea of all these images, because I actually made a short film for this piece. So I did I don't know what to call it, but it was like a string of images but it wasn't the images of exactly what I was saying. It was like simply a young girl walking through certain different scenes in East End, like up in the land and stuff, as if she's contemplating these things. And sad to say, I cannot find the video anywhere. We filmed it years ago, and I don't know where it is, and still searching through boxes. But and also
you know what your next work is, right?
Doing it over.
Do it again.
Yes.
version.
Exactly. And then also when you were talking, Leonard, about and Rita, about the sound in the way that I'm reading it, and that specific Caymanian way, that I always hear Consuelo when I read that piece.
Oh.
There's something just about the way that she spoke that stuck with me forever. And when I'm reading, I can almost feel her saying the words too. And so in a way that it's also a part of, you see how something about someone can stay with you and then seep into your work. I mean, it's a solid part of my work, because every time I read in that manner, I think of her, I feel her presence. So it serves that purpose as well. And also when we were talking, sorry, yes.
So sounds so.
Absolutely. And then when we were talking about, Rita, you were saying about writing in that way, and it kind of encapsulates moments or activities in our history and culture to share with others. My mother recently shocked me by starting to write. You know, she said, I have about 6 poems, and she sent me one.
But you think you got it from Nasaria?
I don't know.
Your mom and your papa?
And she sent it to me, and it was a poem about something I had never heard about before, so I did not know about it. Allotment day. So that was when the seamen's money became available to their families, and they would dress up. It would be an opportunity to wear your best, whatever, stand up in that line and wait for your money. And I can almost imagine the conversations that they had in line, the catching up, the news, the plans of what's going to be done with the money, the arguments about being shortchanged. What if 2 women showed up for the same man? Oh la la. That's a lot of problems. So I sat there then and asked her a million questions about allotment day. I had never heard of it before. So if we're successful, then we'll have the younger generation being able to ask those questions and in that way know more about what the past was like and their culture and their heritage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think you all will agree. Still a lot more. We would love to see the text for it. It's just to sit with it a bit and to review it. Do we have someone joining us?
We'd love to see a film. We'd love to see a film.
I will do it, Leonard. I have a second one that I need to do. And so as we were sitting here talking about it, I was like, I really do need to do it again. So
I have an idea for you.
That's a promise.
Okay,
Yeah,
fantastic. I want to take
to
Leonard's
something.
idea and Nasaria's idea and combine them. And you put a call out for films to be made with this poem in mind.
Okay.
Nice.
And have people participate.
Keep a little bit of South Sound Soul too.
That sounds all for me, please.
Yes.
I just had one tiny last thing to add on that, which has just been sitting with me as well. And obviously the paints and the colors, I totally get that you were saying, Rita, and then Leonard, the sizes of things. And then Lauren, when you were talking about the presences of people. Then what I really got was the shifting of feelings. Feelings is too small a word for what I'm trying to say. But the description of that angst and pain and when everything's all terrible and, you know, what an Anne would do to release herself, and that feeling of release was so powerful. But also were the feelings of protection, like Anne being the shade tree. I love that, you know, suddenly like, oh, I'm protected, but not only protected. And I love my favorite, which I'm going off away from tonight with, was cool sheets after a long day. I mean, like, who doesn't love cool sheets after a long day? I mean, that just like, oh yeah, and that release. you know, it's almost as good as flying away, call sheets on one day. So thank you. They were just my.
Thank you all too.
Thank you, Nasaria. There was one little part, this is just for me, I'm so sorry all, but there is one little section that I wanted to know if you would reread, and it had to do with everything coming out. It's towards the very end, pretty much when everything goes wrong, right before you fly away. And you describe what's going on in the body. Yeah. This is coming up, and it's Kate, you know, it's the same, one of the sections that you mentioned, that, and I think the twins, you know, the one breath, and then flying away, that, you know, there's that somberness where you kind of equate the departure with death, but then of course you come back around and you know, where the flying away becomes something else, as you've mentioned, the release. But that one little section, if you wouldn't just mind ending with from there down.
Okay, to the end.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's the section where I said, come up around my neck and choke.
Yes.
That section, okay. Anand say, when we put our minds to it, we are people who can fly. Anand say, anytime life get up around my neck and choke, crawl up in my belly and rot, buzz up in my head and set my brain on fire, all I need to do is gather the spirits from our spirit tree and fly away. So that's Marmis summer when all of them red shank babies appeared out of the morning mist and climbed the walls of the house. That smelting summer when I start to cut breasts and Boyd tease me about I got cocoa plums growing on my chest. That sweltering summer when that woman tell me, get my nasty black feet out of her fresh sweat white sand. That's the same summer I learned how to spread my blackbird wings and fly.
Yes, sir. See. You know, Nasaria is a West Bay now, so all of that she says these days. She moved from the east to the west. Nasaria, thank you so very much. And for those of you who came on a little late, Lauren has already shared her work, and so has Nasaria, but they will be allowing us to publish the texts so that you can have a read and spend some time with the work that they've shared with us today. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Nasaria. Thank you.
Thank you all for your feedback as well. It's great seeing the work through other people's eyes at times as well. That's why we do it.
Thank you. So we have now Leonard, who will pronounce the biennial properly for us. And
all kinds of pronunciation floating around the place, you know.
Clearly.
Biennial, come on.
Clearly.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
Well, we know what we're all talking about. It's happening at the National Gallery. So if you're on this program with us right now, I love how I'm calling it a program. It's all official. And but you're in Cayman, please go and check out the work at the National Gallery. And I do believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, they also have it online or will be having it online for people to do a digital tour. I know that they have recently put up other projects. Do you either of you know, Nasaria or Leonard? Will they be putting it up online?
I actually don't know for sure. So
they've been trying to do more virtual
Leonard,
tours.
do you think so?
I think so. I think they're intending to do that. Yeah.
I know they mentioned that they were filming because they were because they needed to send those to the judges because some of the judges are not on island. So I'm quite sure they would like double it up and make it available.
And use it online. Well, we will check this space in the future. We will let you know for sure. Nonetheless, we have both Nasaria and Leonard who have exhibited. Nasaria, of course, is a winner as well. So we are moving on to the last person now, not the least, the last person now to share work. And Leonard has a book for those of you who have never read Grown from This Ground or the work from Grown from This Ground. Highly recommended. I do believe he has, I don't know if it's a new book, you can tell me, Leonard, or if it's just new works that you're sharing with the public as well at this time.
No book yet.
But
No
new
book yet.
works.
New work.
New works. So
Yeah.
the piece you're going to share with us today, is it a new piece or is it from Grown from This Ground?
New piece.
Thank
A
you.
new piece. Can I talk now? Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. I was torn between reading something that I'd written some time ago called Dare Dump and Everyone's in It, which is a sort of full love letter to the dump. But I decided in the end to read something that I'd written more recently that I'm still a bit tentative about, but what I enjoyed about doing it was the fact that it's a purely sort of fantastical thing. It's a bit of an escape from doing the kinds of things that I more often do, put it that way, because I'm a fairly political poet. And in terms of my interest in poetry being a voice that is capable of doing lots of things in people's lives, and the fact that we are where we are in our collective lives in this little territory right now, it seems to me that we desperately need language formation that can assist people to manage emotionally, intellectually, in every possible way, because what we need to be thinking about is pretty enormous. We need to be thinking about trying to decide what kind of people we are going to be. At the end of the day, when what we used to know as Caymanian disappears, because it's going to disappear, it's inevitable that it disappears because we are a small handful of people who are suddenly surrounded by many other people from many other parts of the world. God bless us, because that offers us an opportunity to do a different Caymanian, right? To become a different Caymanian, become a Caymanian that is so universal that it will astound the world. But to navigate that, for the people who are native Caymanian, if you will, the people who inherited the heritage of a unique place and time and have carried that with them, what becomes of that? How that translates itself into all these different languages of all these people who surround us and are now with us, now part of us. How do we translate for them so that they understand and they can come back to us with their translation of what they hear us saying? We have a big job to do as far as poetry is concerned. And along the way, not forgetting that all of the human emotions, all of the human enterprise, the way of being human is what poets, artists generally try to capture, try to condense into their work, try to reflect back to those same humans to say, isn't this how we are? Isn't this what we're like? Or isn't this how we could be? Or why are we like this? But somehow there's that reflection taking place. So, like it or not, or intentional or not, that will be part of the work, no matter how you describe it or what you think it is primarily. Like how I call this a fantastical piece. But as I reread it, I was starting to hear things that were grounded in very much everyday life sort of thing. But anyway, that's enough preamble. I will read a piece that has a tentative title as well, and it's in two parts. So one part is a sort of continuation response to the other. So it would probably be best if I read the whole thing, although that might be a bit overwhelming, but it's not too long. Okay?
Yes, please.
So,
Absolutely.
all right. I've called the first piece One Water, and then the second part of it called One Water, bracket, the return. One water. Story goes that this is the one who traced the great river to its source, cut it off short by the tail, pulled it hard out of the cleft rock, and then strode along, thighs tensed, walked on top wet rock and weed, yanking the lengths and depths of it out of its gravelly bed to rise through the air like a cable-muscled Wuhan dragon, coiling it around one shoulder, striding on, knees bending, pulling up more, still more, until reaching the floodplain's meanderings, where he slowed down, hauling the great broad coils of water in until the delta. Time to change, to use every muscle. Pull now like he is manhandling a hole of cassava, a really big hole. 40 tubers, each a half mile long, would take a mule team. All 40 roots bucking up, lifting out of the silt as he pulled. But this is water, remember? So the strands sprayed out, they spray. They get looped all over one another like a gathering in, a convention of the roots of many trees, a forest roots, ghosts. All these water strands spraying, a rainbowed haze dripping, draining down his ribcage. For indeed, he's met the challenge. He has captured, trapped, tied up, all but the stump of the river. Now what? And the second part, one water the return. To that same mighty man now, the owners of the great river said, while he stood there still dripping and grinning to himself, "You are so fantastically strong. You've proven it to everyone. Now put the river back right where you found it." Imagine, you could imagine all that mud and flood around his feet, all that former riverbed exposed, blanching in the sun. And he looks up. He spies clusters of cloud eggs, woolly, soft to the touch. He cites what's available in them, that the only way to replant a river is by the seeds cracked out of cloud eggs, if and only if you can remember which roots of the river are anchors and which are merely feeders, and then to dig them in or not. Around the delta stage alone, so much residual knowledge flows down with so many stones for so much of it to lie hidden under. 1 minute, there he was, could not unburden all that water any faster. So into the sea with it. The sea, he would later swear, lapped and laughed at his recovery works, slapped its sides at his total presumptuousness. And would imagine the cloud eggs in their cloud nest did not wink down towards the sea, watching. Finally, he thought, and raced back up the hill to where the cut-off river's tail still trickled, hiked to the top, climbed the tallest tree there, a black-seeded tamarind, and jumped up. Got hold of a low-hanging cloud egg on the third bruising try, hauled the strands down with him, stuck the threads on the rocks in the former riverbed, wrapped the fuzz around exposed tree roots, thinking, maybe like the pulling out, this must be planted like sticks of cassava. And as he mumbled to his mind, a silent trickle formed, a tiny, damp spot, a small, bright puddle, a brilliant, broad disk of blessed water. But cloud eggs, unbeknownst to him, are everywhere symbiotic. They will live or they will die altogether. So clambering after the captured one, the eggs funneled quick time into one another, darkening. And suddenly he had to run to keep up as the cataract came rushing down the channel, seeming as sure of its footings as a giant caterpillar following its own footsteps. The faster the water rose, the faster the cloud seeds cracked and the rain fell, the tumbling over, the frothing, proving this river can't be the same as before, no matter what yarn is unraveled around the length and depth of either story. The round globe of every drop will sound this out to you. They never tire, rounding off with this: there is no other river in this water. Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. Wow.
I felt really angry. It's true. Felt really upset about this.
Are you a river?
I don't know, but let me tell you something. I really have I'm not in that put me in a very uncomfortable mood. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very curious to hear from anyone else who would like to share now, and then I'll say something afterwards. But let me sit with this feeling.
Look who our latest guest is.
Oh my!
Yeah. How
Hello.
beautiful.
Hello,
everyone.
how are you?
Hi.
Good.
Good.
Come to see Grandpa? Yes.
Oh.
Hey,
Thank
Eli.
you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Did you have a good morning, Eli? Did you have a good morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Lovely to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think as opposed to
Bye-bye.
uncomfortable, I'm thinking that I felt more like, well, that's what you get, like for trying to mess with the river. Like you did such a good job of painting how strong and how powerful not only the river, but all the natural elements were. Like this man was, intensely, fiercely powerful, but at the end of the day, he was dwarfed and beaten by the elements, and showing what happens that you can't, like the first part ended with now what? Now you've irreversibly changed it, but now it seems more imposing, more strong, fiercer than him, and he's being overwhelmed by his lack of foresight.
Could you read
Thank
that
you so
last line for me, please? I like how you finished with that one.
Yeah, strong.
Last time. Okay. Last time says, there is no other river in this water.
I'm just sitting here jealous because like, shoot, I wish I had written that line. I wish I had.
We're all having.
I want a cloud egg. Let me just say.
But they all gonna be together, or clearly.
Yeah, but what I really liked, it has that same feeling of, you know, the stories that teach us lessons.
Like parables.
Parables that you've read, a lot of them. It really felt like that. It felt like a play. It felt like and unlike Rita, I was not angry. I found it very soothing. Can't say why. I know that I connected very much with this idea of water. Water is a huge thing for me. See, I'm wearing as much of it as I can, the blues and stuff. And I connected with that. But what I loved was the way the images, the lines, the story, everything was shared without a lot of extra connective tissue, such that every single thing was, you wanted to hold on to every word as it came, every line as it came. And I understand that that's quite a craft to be able to do that, because it's something that I don't always, I have to go back in and I could probably do it with every one of my pieces and go and even do it even more. So I really respect that, being able to share so much with us, just crafting the words together. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Kate, you wanted to say something.
How do you know I wanted to say something?
Because your mic is
Your
off.
face.
Your mic is off. It isn't that deep.
No, well, there was obviously a clear difference for me anyway in feeling between the first and the second, and definitely the water, one water, the first one. Oh, it's frenetic. Like I wasn't angry, but I was a little bit like confused and confuddled and all the streams and the roots and the strands and the loops and the coils, and then I was getting I felt like I was getting like wound up in all those loops and coils, and I was like, God. And then you know, the forests and the dripping and the draining, and I just, you know, it was really quite claustrophobic but confusing. And then it was all done, and he'd got it all. And then there was a sense of calm in the second one, and that whole kind of now what. And so on top of the kind of parable storytelling learning of it was this, for me, comparing that to fighting things in your own world, whether it be right or wrong. So like just trying to fight through kind of society or whatever you're struggling with, and you're constantly tied up in this stuff. And then once it's gone, you take a step back and you just say, okay, right, now what was all that about? And what was that even worth, getting all tied up in all that stuff? Well, no, basically. So there was so much there for me about particularly all those that they're getting tied up in the beginning. And then that, as you say, the residual knowledge, and similar to the previous poem, this idea of knowledge and wise. The second part was knowledgeable, and why it was more of the wise power coming through, whereas the first one was just almost doing something stupid, but in strength, but actually just chaotic. That's what I got. I got so much more, but I mean that was definitely a lot of what I got from it. Wow, it's beautiful.
I wanted to say something about the anger I initially felt, please, because it's really important for me to. I think I carried the emotion from the first piece into the second piece. The residue of the first piece really, it made me really think about how I kind of live my life as well. But I can carry something. So, because I was still holding on to my feelings from the first piece, I can't swear to you that I was truly able to appreciate all of the second piece. I was in the past. I was stuck on moments that didn't allow me to truly experience what was happening in the moment. And so by the time I got to the second piece, I had a bit of a burning stomach, which I said, okay, that's anger. But that's what it was discomfort. And not at the beginning though. I mean, I even, you can hardly see, but I have a little coil there, right? You can kind of see the coil. I started, initially drawing the little coils of water, calling the coils of water, and it became this sort of a beautiful image. And then there was something that happened. Now put that river back right where you took. And then I started to think about development in Cayman. We kind of touched on that at the top of the conversation. Not everyone was here, but I think that's what happened. I think I started to go down my own path of how once you destroy it, that's it. I mean, you can't ever put it back the way it was. Once you start to go on that journey of, pulling out, and then when you start talking about, oh, you're so powerful, now put it back. And then it kind of clicked for me emotionally. I thought, yeah, aren't we big and strong? Aren't we fantastic that we can just rip the earth apart and throw down anything we want and build the tallest skyscrapers? And so I was in a whole other kind of space. And I think that's where the anger really was coming from, not necessarily all of the words, but it certainly took me on a bit of a journey. And I'm feeling a bit, feeling a bit like I need to sit with it a bit longer. So there, I think I've qualified a bit of what I said at the top.
It's okay to get angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. The amazing thing is that all of those things that all of you said, I have encountered in reading back what I wrote. One of the things I learned along the way, and kind of learned it the hard way, is that if you set out to write a poem about something, like this needs to be written about, it's a recipe for disaster. You can write a lot of things. You can be very passionate. You can be very persuasive. You can carry the rhetoric of a Martin Luther King Jr., right, or a Mahatma Gandhi, but the results will not necessarily be a poem or poetry. And so, as my attraction in writing the piece was that I started to enjoy this tale that was spinning in my head, and the language presented itself to help me to present the tale, so to speak. But it's one of those things where what Nasaria talked about, that sort of fabulistic element, like you're writing a fable, or even a children's story. That idea had been percolating in the back of my head for quite a while, and I'd been reading stuff in that vein about the construct of these tales and that type of thing, as well as reading the tales themselves, because almost nothing worse than reading about writing as opposed to reading writing. And somehow or other, I suppose I must have filtered through my subconscious. The sort of drama of the thing appeals to me on a very visceral level, which I think is the word that Kate was, that summed up what Kate was referring to, right? It's a visceral response. It comes right out of your gut, so to speak. And it becomes very physically involved. There's a very kind of almost macho element to that first part about the great strength and prowess of this person to be able to do this really impossible thing. Like, who can pull a river out of its bed and coil it up, and what? It just can't happen, right? But it was that whole idea of power, of sort of unbridled power that really had no measure, that was the sort of driver for me imaginatively in the first instance. And the response, I suppose, was almost like me having a gut reaction to it myself and say, no, but that's not right. And then responding to it. But there again, I didn't respond thinking of, I should respond to this. It was more on the level of the subconscious rejection of what the first thing represented, but in a very in a playful way, in the way of just purely enjoying the imaginative battle between these two forces, so to speak. But as I said, when I reflect on the language itself and what the language says, if you put a lot of that language in an everyday context, you would quickly begin to see implications for current behavior, current practice, like what Rita was talking about, that it is very much in that same vein. The fact that it's a river and we have no rivers here, I think is part of what is fun for me about it, that it sort of creates a displacement for anybody from here reading it, because they're kind of compelled to put themselves in a situation that is not natural to them. Yeah. But that displacement thing is very helpful in getting a response from an audience if your aims are polemical. And this is, I think, a hidden polemic in a way, right? It's a way of speaking the same thing about, where are you going with all this? Do you really have the nerve to continue just ripping up the place and destroying things just because you want to do this and for this purpose? And that purpose is usually just to make a shitload of money. And unfortunately, we are too good at facilitating people ripping the place up to make their money.
Yes.
So in that way, it's a polemic against that, but it's left to the reader opposite to see that in it. And I am hugely gratified for all of you seeing all the things that you saw, because it to my mind, it says that the best things about the piece that I would have wanted to be said. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask, especially now that you've given us some context, and the river, I'm glad you brought up the river. I'm really happy because that was something that kind of stood out. Why a river? But it is so universal also, right? And most anyone could identify, even, it could be about Cayman, but you can identify with the river. And there's so much imagery attached to the river and what the river means and the power of the river and where it flows into. There are many other reasons to use a river, I suppose.
But in terms of imaginative construct, in terms of causing the suspension of disbelief that anyone encountering art needs to go through in order to accept what the art is saying. If you say a river, it's almost believable, right? It's almost conceivable that someone could do that. If you say the sea, then people say, huh? No, no way. It's going to do what? You shoveling up the sea? Come on.
Yeah.
Right? So you immediately throw people off, and the engagement that you want from the very word go is lost, right? So not that I rationalize that, because it presented itself that way. It presented itself as the man pulling up the river. And all I was doing really was following the story, trying to keep up with this thing that was just spinning itself out. It was whether it is successful or not with a wide audience as opposed to an audience that already has a sort of vested interest, if you will. It remains to be seen, but strictly speaking, that success will not really be mine, in the sense that it was one of those real give-ins, right? That I, like I say, struggled to keep up with what was unfolding itself and find the language to match the things that were happening, that were being suggested either by a feeling or by an image or from some other source. And you get lucky when those things are happening sometimes, that you might hear a sound or sense somebody moving or a branch blowing or something, and all of a sudden your mind goes somewhere else, but that somewhere else brings back something into what you're doing in a way that provides the life that thing needs, like gives it further nurture and cause it to go on. So
Yes. These growing pains. I don't know, that immediately that comes.
That's perpetual.
Yeah, for absolutely. It did remind me of Borges's There Are Rivers.
Who, sorry?
Jorge Luis Borges.
Yes.
Who has There Are Rivers, and we are the rivers. We're the water in that.
Yes.
And so, I also had moments when I thought of time being the river, and people being the river, and all of that being ripped up in a sense.
Yeah. And the river is a very, very old image. And I talking of sources, I recommend a source. I think I can remember the name correctly. I think the man's name is Dilip Dacuna, DILIP and DACUNHA. His whole life work is about water, and he has a number of publications. I won't try to cite the book that I've been wanting to get and have failed to order, but I've read some of his things online, and it's very, very powerful what he has to say about water and the way water is a part of human civilization, sort of thing. it's really worth exposing yourself to. Nasaria, I recommend it.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We can't let you go without you reading it for us one more time. You do understand that though, right? That is part of the contract.
Read what, sorry?
We said we can't allow you to go without you leaving us with just one more reading of each of the pieces. It just wouldn't be fair to our audience.
You know it's lunchtime, right?
Yes, you see, and I'm hungry too. Imagine it's dinner.
So I put on my tools.
You see, now I know you're gonna read it real good because you won't get to your food.
Yeah. or I read it too fast.
No, absolutely. Just savor the moment with us one last time.
This is when my old poetry teacher would say, leave them wanting more.
We will, and we would love to have you all back again. So this was just a taster.
Yeah, but I need more attractive contract terms next time.
Absolutely. We'll send you the t-shirt.
I need more artistic control.
All right, Kanye.
Okay, One Water. Story goes that this is the one who traced the great river to its source, cut it off short by the tail, pulled it hard out of the cleft rock, and then strode along, thighs tensed, walked on top wet rock and weed, yanking the lengths and depths of it out of its gravelly bed to rise through the air like a cable-muscled Wuhan dragon, coiling it around one shoulder, striding on, knees bending, pulling up more, still more, until reaching the floodplain's meanderings, where he slowed down, hauling the great broad coils of water in until the delta. Time to change, to use every muscle. Pull now like he's manhandling a hole of cassava, a really big hole, 40 tubers, each a half mile long, would take a mule team. All 40 roots bucking up, lifting out of the silt as he pulled. But this is water, remember? So the strands spread out, they spray, they get looped all over one another, like a gathering in, a convention of the roots of many trees, a forest roots ghosts, all these water strands spraying a rainbowed haze, dripping, draining down his rib cage, for indeed, he's met the challenge. He has captured, trapped, tied up, all but the stump of the river. Now what? One Water, the return. To that same mighty man now, the owners of the great river said, while he stood there still dripping and grinning to himself, you are so fantastically strong. You have proven it to everyone. Now put that river back right where you found it. Imagine, you could imagine all that mud and flood around his feet, all that former riverbed exposed, blanching in the sun. And he looks up. He spies clusters of cloud eggs, woolly, soft to the touch. He cites what's available in them, that the only way to replant a river is by the seeds cracked out of cloud eggs, if, and only if you can remember which roots of the river are anchors and which are merely feeders, and then to dig them in or not. Around the delta stage alone, so much residual knowledge flows down with so many stones for so much of it to lie hidden under. 1 minute there he was, could not unburden all that water any faster, so into the sea with it. The sea, he would later swear, lapped and laughed at his recovery works, slapped its sides at his total presumptuousness. And don't imagine the cloud eggs and their cloud nests did not wink down towards the sea watching. Finally, he thought, and raced back up the hill to where the cut-off river's tail still trickled, hiked to the top, climbed the tallest tree there, a black-seeded tamarind, and jumped up, got hold of a low-hanging cloud egg on the third bruising try, hauled the strands down with him, stuck the threads on the rocks in the former riverbed, wrapped the fuzz around exposed tree roots, thinking, maybe like the pulling out, this must be planted like sticks of cassava. And as he mumbled to his mind, a silent trickle formed, a tiny damp spot, a small bright puddle, a brilliant broad disk of blessed water. But cloud eggs, unbeknownst to him, are everywhere symbiotic. They will live or they will die all together. So clambering after the captured one, the eggs funnel quick time into one another, darkening. And suddenly he had to run to keep up as the cataract came rushing down the channel, seeming as sure of its footings as a giant caterpillar following its own footsteps. The faster the water rose, the faster the cloud seas cracked and the rain fell, tumbling over, the frothing, proving this river can't be the same as before, no matter what yarn is unraveled around the length and depth of either story. The round globe of every drop will sound this out to you. They never tire rounding off with this. There is no other river in this water.
It is good to hear it again, actually. It is
Yeah.
good to hear it twice, Rita, you're right. All of them.
Nice. 4 times. We would love to have that, but certainly having the texts will allow us to do that, because I think every time we listen or hear, we will find something else, and it'll just keep goes like a prism, you know what I mean? Depending on how you turn it, you'll see the colors in a different way. And now I feel a bit not angry now. I think I've moved on a little bit. Just a touch, just a touch. But I feel more complete. Definitely feel
It's the ultimatum making you angry. Because that's how the last line reads to me. It reads like an ultimatum.
Ultimatum, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Amazing. Brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. I'm not the artist. Maybe Nasaria could reinterpret your work, you know, with a piece of art, but that's my drawing. So there you go. That's the root that still have that. And these see the feeders going up there now. And then those ones, the anchors to the roots there. We're going to get to it. Somehow you see the sea smiling somewhere. Not that's enough now. That's all you need to see. But I found there's
you have to share that to them.
You're good. That's not my contract. So
you have a contract?
I figured I should say I have one. If you said you had one.
You told me I had one. You told me I had one. See how rumors start?
You see how things start? Just
Exactly.
Amazing.
Because I don't have one.
You know, I just want to bring up just a few images before we close off, because we're, you know, we have about 15 minutes left, but just
I
a
have
few.
a question too, please.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You go first.
Okay, Nasaria and Mr. Dilbert, do you all have images of your pieces that are in the current Biennale that you can share with us?
Well, what had happened is I do not know how to use Zoom in that way. So I would not know how to share it.
You could
But
email it to Kate.
I can send it.
if you want to email it to me, I can add it to, we do a little post-event piece where I write about what happened, and we've got little screenshots and things. I can add it to that.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
because of the nature of what David Bridgman and myself did, I actually have images of mine in the house. I can get
Oh.
that and show you like this if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Should I get it?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
I
How fun among yourselves in the meantime.
We'll try our
I would-
best.
Okay.
I would say that I wanted to say too that in the poem, in my poem, I said about the spirit tree. And it's so funny because the bottles that the exhibition, the installation I did for the biennial are these color water bottles that I started doing way back when the gallery was still in front of Paradise.
Mhm.
And it was in reaction to something I had read about the Gullah people and the colored bottles of water that they used to honor the spirits of their ancestors.
It's
Right?
amazing
And-
because we sound like the Gullah, actually.
Yes, we actually that
The Caymanian sound is so close to the
coming.
Gullah people sound.
Yeah. And not only that, some of the words that we use, and they also have something that's very similar to cassava cake. So they call it sweet potato pie without crust. And it looks just like cassava cake.
But also they're weaving patterns.
Yes,
Same
they're
as well. They're plaiting,
and
they're
then-
plaiting.
And then also they say Anna, they say Ahana sometimes.
Ah.
And then also they say Arekli. Well, I thought that
No.
was strictly
If
a
they say
Georgetown thing.
Arekle, there's our cousins. No, if they say Arekle, because Anna is a West
Arekle.
African word, we could have got that everywhere, but Arekle. So
Yeah.
Leonard has brought his pieces back. Yes, absolutely. And I want to say something to you about the, how do you say it? Biennial? In just a moment. Leonard, please.
Okay. All right. So what David Bridgman and myself did was he had an image which is in the middle of the production there.
Mhm.
It's an image of a character called Aunt Sally, who has a whole history. It's what he encountered growing up in Oxfordshire. It was a pub game. The image was presented as basically an old, ugly black woman, black slave woman. And it was something that partly had its origins back in the day of Charles I. His army apparently brought it to Oxfordshire because I think Charles, in the middle of the English Revolution, Charles moved his seat of government to Oxford. And this would have been when the troops went there and they brought this thing. But that image resonated with me as something that had so much packed into it and could be played with so much that we decided that was the image we were going to use. And so that first one is his treatment. I wrote a text that we were both to draw from, and the words he's used are all drawn from that text. So he has words like the universal color coming up. Can't really see it. I have to send it to you.
Beautiful.
You can see universe.
But these are all images, these are all words that came out of this document. Now, it's a conceptual piece. So this seem two images, what he produced and what I produced, which is this one, also taken from the same text and the same image, also taken from the same document. But you'd have to actually be able to see it properly to get it. But it started out as a sort of faux political party, partly because it coincided with the lead up to the elections here, and partly because it seemed to be a good way to respond to the theme of the Biennale, which was reimagined futures. So we said, let's create this, or my idea really was to create this political party that was going to present its sense of what the reimagined world would look like, or could look like. But as I worked with the whole thing, the idea of a party became less and less attractive to me, because party has its way of including and its way of excluding. And I wanted to have something much more inclusive, something that would invite participation from people more freely than if they were responding to a party instrument. So as the writing evolved, it evolved into this entity referred to as True Blue. So at the top of this, you will see the use of that verbiage, right? But you'll also see that it says, get back to normal, no thanks, not the True Blue tribals, and death masks hang over the exit gate to the old regime. So the whole thing is still available to for people to scan a QR code. That's what these were to be used for. These copies were posted around the place in order to get people to scan the QR code so they could access the document. So that was all part of the concept. The other part of the concept was to have a book available that contained the hard copy of the document and space for people to comment on the content. And I sort of presented my concession speech on behalf of True Blue since we lost the election. Even though we weren't a party anymore, we were party to the election in the sense of trying to awaken people's ideas about what ought to come out of an election. So that presentation at the opening of the exhibition was part of that concept to involve the audience there immediately in the whole enterprise. So that's our conceptual piece.
Are we able
So-
to see the document, Leonard? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I can forward that as well.
We'd love
Because
to have.
what I'm working towards is making sure that whatever link people have, they can access the image and the document, or the images and the document, and that it's interactive, that people will be able to respond to it. One of the things I said I was going to invite people to do was people of different language backgrounds, if they read something in the document that resonated with them, and could they translate, basically? If they found a sentence or a paragraph that was particularly powerful for them or spoke to them, take a translation into your own language and post that back along with the original document so that people can see your language. And the whole thing being a very big idea of developing an intercultural lexicon in Cayman. Because if we don't start thinking in those terms, and I was referring to that a little while ago on my soapbox, but if we don't start thinking in those terms now, we're going to miss a huge opportunity, and we're going to get ourselves in a shitload of trouble. If people don't know each other, don't understand each other, can't even talk to each other, where is it going to go?
Absolutely. Now, you said that this initially started out as a party. Does the True Blue tribals, do you have a manifesto other than?
Yes, that's what the document is called. The document is called a manifesto.
Okay, so we would, that would be what we would be able to access, right?
Yes.
And okay, I thought it might have been
And-
information about what David had found, the game, if you will. I thought it might have been.
The whole thing needs to be, well, I'm intending to develop it further. And one part of that would be telling the story of Aunt Sally. And when I looked up Aunt Sally, I started to see cross references that led me to similar games that they had in the United States that were called African Dunk, or some other term they had for the slaves, basically. And it was one of those, the old fairground game of pelting something to unbalance somebody, make them fall in the water.
Mhm.
Well, they did it with the slaves, basically. That was a sport to dunk the African. And it says a lot about many different aspects of that whole history that have not really been fully explored, because we still tend to think about our common history, which is a foundation in a slaveholding society. We still tend to think about that in various stereotypical terms, and not in terms of people people thinking about people with all their nuances, all the warts and all this. And it's pastime for the slaves and their owners to be given their full humanity, and for us to be able to walk from there as far as according full humanity to all of us along the way. Because there's a lot that is yet to be recovered in terms of the way people were and how we got to be the way we are as a result of, partly as a result of how they were. And the way people were not just being here either, because we had many interactions with many different cultures. You mentioned the Gullah. We don't have known interaction with them,
Right.
but we do have with the persons in Nicaragua,
Mesquites.
and Mesquites and so on,
Mhm.
that resulted in children being produced and so on, and there are streams of those people amongst us
Mhm.
and streams of their
words.
culture amongst us that we don't even acknowledge.
And terms and words like.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember
Language.
Sapapa? We were talking about
and in the
Sapapa.
language. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Bada I think, is Tahino or something. I might be wrong, but
Mm,
Ray Banker.
mm.
If you
I've been
ask
looking
Captain
into
Kim, he
that.
said somebody made it up. So be careful who you ask to.
No, apparently it actually means, it's actually the word, the native, I don't know what the people are called, so I don't want to say it wrong, but
For the tracks?
the tracks that the
For the turtles.
make in the.
That's what I've read
Mm.
also, but Captain Kim, again, this is part of, it's actually part and parcel of what Leonard's talking about. Captain Kim,
Mm.
I asked him that, I said, oh, so this is the turtle tracks. He said, no, who told you that foolishness? So, I stopped repeating it because I said, well, the authority
Yeah.
over here,
Yeah,
but it
what-
has to
what-
do with us not being also familiar with the many Caymanians
Yeah.
that we are from.
Mm.
The many people that have made up the Caymanians that we are today, the various branches, and so it's part of that acknowledgement, as I think Leonard was alluding to, us needing to actually recognize.
We've been teaching people all along that we have this sort of monolithic history, that it's all contained within this little box. And
Mhm.
these are the things that we are known for. These are the things that were part of our life. And it is a lie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is not how it is at all. People are not like that. You cannot contain people in these little boxes. People are going to be varied and manifold in their ways. And we have been that way. There are many gifts that we have not yet discovered.
Absolutely.
Well, I would like to join your party. so
Me too. I will be part of
Let me
True.
know.
Well, now that you're a West Bear, you're allowed.
For life.
I'm just kidding. I have to do West Bay joke here and there, but I too would like to join the party. And I think that it would be wonderful to have a session sometime in the future when perhaps we could speak a little bit about our inheritances, and all of them, including Kate and I've had some discussions about genetic memory and intergenerational trauma, and so inheritances in the broad sense. So whether that's language or maybe the pain we carry or etc. So perhaps if anyone who's on this call today who knows of other people who might be interested in that, do let us know. And certainly Nasaria and Leonard, if you would like to contribute, we would love to have both of you on for a discussion like that in the future. Now, just before we spoke a little bit about the exhibition at the National Gallery, I wanted to say, we're about to close off now, but I want to just say two things here to Leonard. Now, where did I put my notes? Oh, Leonard Nasaria is interesting, the blanching in the sun and the bleaching. The bleaching, and I just thought that there are points where some of the imagery from both of your pieces kind of tied in to each other with nature, and I just thought that was, you both said similar things just in very different way. The blanching in the sun conjures up a little bit different of an image versus the bleaching, as a result of the blue soap in the skin. So it's, and I mention it only because with poetry, I think it's just so important that you, and it is obvious, but I'm going to say it, every word has to be chosen very carefully, because every word does impact you in a different way. And of course, we will still all have our own sort of kind of connotations or feelings or experiences with those words and the images, but still, I think that's the beauty of what was shared here in this session with Lauren, Nasaria, and Leonard. They crafted their pieces in such a way that you couldn't help but give in as a result of what they conjured up in you. You had to submit to all of the pieces, and that is certainly a gift. And I want to thank Lauren, who's not here, but also Nasaria and Leonard. Thank you so much for your time. I can't express how appreciated it is having you all on here. You show me the money. That's oh, Leonard, the contract discussion is afterwards. Just take it easy. So I mean, I'm full. I don't know how, Shalon, Jana, Jennifer is here, and some people left, but I'm certainly full, and I couldn't have asked for anything more than this. Your time is so valuable, the most precious gift you can give to anyone. And so we thank you for that at Cayman Connection. And we would love to know more about what you're working on currently. If there's ever a point when you would like us to perhaps share a bit of what you're doing, we'd love to do that.
Before you close, do we have a minute?
Yes.
Do we have a minute? Okay.
Yes.
No, I just want to say this because after this moment is lost to people's memories and whatever, right?
Sure.
The point you're referring to about those two images, the blanching and the bleaching, what strikes me is that both of us obviously live in a context where the light is extremely strong, right? And people have to meet all kinds of challenges in adjusting their painting practice if they move here from elsewhere, because they have to figure out, how am I going to paint in this light? Right? Because colors mean something very different in this light. But that strong light, you see the sun reflecting off the sea. It's that dazzling is something that would have affected both of us, would be in our subconscious store of images, right? And whether it is something that would have occurred to either one of us as being a reference point for that or not, when you respond to it, makes me think, well, where did that come from? Mm. And one of the things that comes to my mind immediately is, I wonder if it comes from that, because there's this weird sort of symbiotic relationship that develops between the artist and their environment in ways that you become, you develop a sort of oneness with things that allows you to be almost inside that thing, as if you were living the life of that leaf or walking in the footsteps of that caterpillar, right?
Yeah.
And that is a function. That's an artistic function. But in this particular case, it manifests itself, I think, in this specific sort of way. Whether that is, say, literally where it came from, but it makes you wonder. And when it makes you wonder, it sends you into other places, which is what I love about this work.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Packaged it up all good for us. And I agree with you 100%. And it brings tears to my eyes. Actually, I think after this whole session, I haven't really missed home for a while. I really haven't. I think I have kind of the comfort in the back of my mind that I have a little money set aside that if I needed to fly home, I could. So I think but I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm on the verge of tears here because—
Put on your blackbird wings.
Put on my blackbird wings right now. You say, look, I come in
for free.
Feel the spirit tree.
Not really black, a little more, but that no matter, right? Yeah. I just genuinely, I miss home, hearing you all, because again, that imagery and that connectedness, and whether it's the sieg or, the red shanks or, the blanching or we don't have the river, but there's the water and there's the clouds and then the development, which I don't particularly like.
You miss plenty. You miss the cassava.
I miss the cassava. Why 40? Why 40? Tell me why 40 before we go. Why 40?
40 is one of those cultural reference points too.
For the sea
40 acres,
maritime
40
heritage.
acres, 40 acres and a mule, and there are 40 references in the Bible in various places.
40 days and 40
is-
nights.
40 is a number to conjure with, right?
Yes, you
No,
tell me.
seriously, it's a number
I
to
know
conjure
I'm
with.
40, Leonard, I'm asking you.
Hey,
Tell me.
Mhm.
You're not putting no obi on me, right?
No. You can conjure good or bad, you know.
True.
Exactly.
Very true. So there's,
So
as we can
it's
see,
all about what's here.
absolutely. You all, we could, I mean, I certainly could spend hours and hours going through, because we could just dissect these pieces, you know, in so many different ways. But I want to say thank you once again. We'd love to have you back. Thank you for those of you who joined us, and thank you.
I'm so
Thank
sorry I
you
had
so
to.
much.
let
No,
Thank
it's
you all
okay.
very much.
And we look forward to seeing the text so that we can also share that, and also links, images, video of the work you currently have on display. We would also like to share that with Cayman Connection members.
Yeah, you should probably have a link with the National Gallery directly as an organization.
Yeah.
We
Because
do,
there are
yes.
advantages to be got from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We do, and let's particularly link this one up because
Yeah.
of the event. You know, it's insightful when we do events like this. We learn more about other things that are going on, and it's been really. I've got so much more to say, but I'm not going to now. Just thank you so much. It's been really, really inspirational, and has a lot to think about. And thank you, Rita, for fabulous hosting once again. And we look forward to more.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Enjoy your lunch.
Good evening,
Or your
everyone.
brunch.
Enjoy your dinner.
And your dinner, everybody.
Bye,
I think-
everybody.
I gotta thank my cook.
Have
Bye.
any pepper sauce for your lunch?
Oh,
You know, Miss Jennifer, I heard that you're part of the Cayman Connection board,
As a twist of the knife.
Yes,
which
that's
means,
right. So
which
maybe
means you
what I
can
need
get
is
things to
pepper
us.
sauce to get-
But
Like
guess
breadfruit.
what? I made my own pepper sauce because I can find Scotch bonnet here. But you know what? Bring me some seasoning peppers next time you come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Night,
You
everybody.
Send us some Scotch bonnet seeds because that's in short supply here now.
Oh, really? All
Yeah,
right, we'll do an
the-
exchange.
The peppers are cross pollinating, and as a result, you're not getting true Scotch bonnet very often.
Oh, wow.
We'll
Well,
work
we
on
got
that.
plenty of them. We'll do an exchange. Flights coming and going.
Okay.
Shh, I don't think I was allowed to say that. Please don't share this recording. We're just joking about the transfer
Put
of
it there.
seeds.
Bye, everybody.